Today is going to be a bit of a special video. I'm going to be looking at some of the top pro NES Tetris strategies from 1989 and see how they stack up against the strategies of the competitive scene today. And how are we able to do this? Well, in the box for NES Tetris comes a little advert for the Nintendo Power magazine. To play seriously, you need the power from the pages of this magazine. On the back here it says, "Learn how to play better, straight from the pros. Nintendo Power will turn the average player into a video master." And through the power of online archives, you can pull up the edition from the very month that NES Tetris was released over 30 years ago. So, let's take a look. So the first page here, there's not really too much to say about it. It's just sort of going over how you control the pieces, how you turn them left and right. But the second page, all right, we're getting into the basic techniques. Favor the sides. While placing pieces, try to build only on the sides. If the tetrads stack high, it's best to have piles on the far left or right. This will allow for more movement in the middle. Then they have a picture of someone stacking with a right well and a center well. The thing is, they're not even explaining anywhere really on these first two pages what like the whole point is. The reason that you're stacking like this, where you have just a perfect stack with one column open, is that you can put the long bars in there for a Tetris because it's worth up to 7.5 times more points per line. I don't really know what they're saying here. They're really not being very specific. They're saying like you could put the well on the left or the right or the center. You can pretty much put it anywhere, which there is an optimal spot to put the well. The 7-time world champion Jonas Neubauer, in the first minute of his Tetris 101 class, gets straight to the point.
So this kind of build, look at this build. You're going for those little 4 bars every time. So you want to build in such a way that makes it easier to do that. So you're building this like left sloping to right. And why are you even building on the right side? It's because the line, see when you rotate it, it favors the right. Also at the water park, you should take your shirt off if you're going on the slides because the shirt will slow you down and it's a bummer. So make sure your shirt's off if you go to the water slides. That's a free tip. Oh my God. That's a free tip for everyone. So you want to stack with the hole on the right because the long bar can get over there faster because it spins with a bias towards the right, and you have more time to set up for a Tetris, which is clearing 4 lines at once. It's interesting that they don't point out a preferred spot to put the well because this actually was something that some of the early players weren't sure about. So Harry Hong, for example, the first player to get a verified max out through Twin Galaxies, he got it by starting out stacking with the left. And in the documentary Ecstasy of Order about the very first Tetris World Championship in 2010, where a lot of these players are meeting for the first time, they're all sort of congregating and realizing that there's not this universal knowledge of some of the best practices.
I actually noticed that Harry builds on the left side, which is interesting.
I find that to be
You mean you leave your...
Who said it was unacceptable to say that?
I would not do that.
As for the center well, there is one player, Quaid, who prefers to use it and really made a name for himself and the center well when he used it to make a run all the way to the finals in 2015. But in Jonas Neubauer's subsequent analysis of world championship matches, he was kind of critical of the center well.
These Quaid wells, man. He's Bernstein. You gotta burn like 3 or 4 lines just to get Tetris ready.
Mm-hmm. He's burned 27 lines since his last Tetris. That's the center well maintenance, right?
And as a result, in some of the recent tournaments, Quaid has made a shift to using the right well a lot of the time.
You were critiquing my game. And I was like, you know what? Jonas, I'll build it all to the right. Because he's like, look, he's burning so many lines because he does it in the middle. So I came in today going like, I'm going to put it all to the right as much as I could.
Don't center the pile. Oh yeah, that goes without saying. You don't want to have 2 wells on both sides because then you're just waiting for a long bar twice as much, which is statistically much less likely to happen. Honestly though, if the left side was filled in, this isn't a terrible stack. It's still accommodating to every single piece. What I think would probably be a more effective way to say this is don't have like a mountain in the center because then you don't have your left built out to skim lines. You might get stuff snagged on there. This is just sort of an issue with having 2 wells. Think about the future. The shape of the next tetrad to fall is shown just to the right of the playing area, and it's very important to plan ahead for the next piece. Make your decision on where to drop the current piece based on what is to follow. Yes, that is very important. That is good advice. Tetris is basically a juggling act. You're deciding where to put your next piece while you're dropping your current piece into place. Because if you're deciding where to put your piece as it's currently dropping, there's a way to simulate that, which is to turn the next box off. And there was a side event for that in 2018 at the World Championships. And among all of these best Tetris players in the world, in that entire mini tournament, nobody was able to score a Tetris in competition. Okay, now we're gonna get into the levels. Choose the starting level and work up to a higher score. A solid structure construction of multiple line completions are important to send your score to record heights. That's right. If you start at a higher level, the lines are worth more points. So generally you want to start at the highest level possible for your comfort level. Level 0. At this beginner's level, you're afforded the time you need to set up the blocks for multiple line completions. A high stack of blocks is less difficult when the tetrads are falling at this slow rate. Yeah, pretty darn slow. Jonas Newbar actually, he recommends for new players, just don't even play on level 0. The lowest level he recommends starting on is level 5, because the lower levels, you basically have unlimited time and it's not training you at all to get faster. But like, let's see what their description is for level 5. 2 and 3 line completions are still possible at these levels, but waiting for a 4-line Tetris may not be practical. What? But they have, the player is stacking for Tetrises in those example images. Oh my goodness. No, it's too fast. How will I set up for a Tetris? Oh no, should I put it here? Or should I put it here? Or should I put it here? There's just not enough time to decide. But okay, let's get up to level 9. It's pure survival here. Complete lines and keep the pile low. You know, like they're totally doing in those example images. Okay, so here's the thing. Level 9 is the lowest level you've ever been able to start at in the World Championships. It's still so slow that most players are just going to be pushing down every single piece, you know, just to get the game going a little faster. And the thing is, Jonas Neubauer, his strategy was to never push down so that he always had the maximum amount of time to think about where he's going to put his next piece. But on games with a level 9 start, without pushing down, his gameplay was so excruciatingly slow that you had people from the audience shouting out, "Wake me up when this gets interesting." And for the last couple of years, level 9 starts have just been completely phased out. The lowest level you can start on now is level 15, and honestly, that's probably gonna go away pretty soon. Level 19, for experts only, the pieces come down faster than freefall on these levels. Okay, well that one is accurate. You do have to be an expert to play on level 19, or you just have to be able to tap really fast. Okay, so this next page is B-type, which most of it is just a description of how B-type works. Basically, the goal is to just, they give you a bunch of garbage, and you try and just clear down 25 lines before you top out. It's not really strategy advice, but they do have some fun little descriptions of the heights 1 through 5. Height 1, with a few lines, you could do away with this clutter. Yeah, I mean, height 1's pretty easy. Height 2, reduce the size of the pile. You don't say. Height 3, open up and fill gaps to make solid lines. I mean, yeah, that's kind of the point. Height 5, concentrate on completing lines. Good luck. It's kind of like giving soccer advice and saying, concentrate on kicking the ball. Good luck. I can't fault them too much. There's probably like some guy who was just assigned to write something for this article and say something different about heights 1 through 5. Like honestly, until you get to the very highest speeds where you're having to use like advanced techniques to move the pieces faster over to the sides, it's all basically the same strategy. Howard's tips for advanced players. Oh my gosh, guys, this is a revelation. Howard is a real person. So when you play a game of Tetris, on the high score scene, there's 3 names, Howard, Otasan, and Lance. And if you score higher than 10,000 points, you're the number 1 on the board, and it says, congratulations, you're a Tetris master. This must be where that came from. If you beat 10,000 points, you have beat Nintendo resident Tetris master Howard's score. Which, by the way, I don't know if they were really factoring in higher levels when they made that, because beating Howard's score only takes 1 Tetris on level 18.
All right, there we go, 1 Tetris. Let's top out. Boom, I'm a Tetris master.
All right, let's take a look at Howard's tips. 1, at high level speeds, it is extremely important to keep the pile of blocks as low as possible. Place the pieces as low on the pile as possible and set them horizontally if the space allows. I don't know if that advice really holds up. It doesn't really matter whether you're placing a piece horizontally or vertically. What matters is the situation on your board. You want to make sure you're placing your piece that's optimal for your overall strategy and either setting up for a Tetris, building out your left, or making the board more accommodating for your next piece. In isolation, in this example, he has the right move, but he's saying it for the wrong reason. Because if you didn't see this T piece coming up, I'd probably say just like put this L piece over to the left, which is placing it vertically, but it's placing it on a side that's benefiting you because you're building out the side that's most difficult to access. I think what this advice is trying to get at is don't build up stuff in the middle, which we covered at the beginning. But again, it has nothing to do there with like placing pieces horizontally or vertically. It has to do with just stacking stuff in the center. 2, here's some advice for Tetris experts and novices alike. While it is tempting to place pieces only where they will fit perfectly and leave no gaps, it can be more important at times to make sure that lines are completed. This is a perfect fit. This fit, though, will result in 3 completed lines and no gaps. Really? It's level 3. Why are you taking the triple? So this is something that Jonas will rant about all the time when watching World Championship matches. He does not like triples.
That's a waste of lines in my opinion, and people use it as a crutch because they're super worried about being too high. But you don't need to take 3 when 1 will do. When you're down by 176,000, this is the absolute worst thing you could do, is take a triple there and take yourself out of Tetris readiness. Oh my gosh, that triple
And that's why he
kills
laughs.
me, dude. Your plan when you're down and you're on 28, your plan is never to take a triple. Stand it up, the single skim.
You only have a limited amount of lines to work with, so you want to waste as few as possible on triples and save them all for Tetrises. If you only burn 1 line with a single, even though the single is worth less points, if you can save pace for a Tetris, then that's the better move. And again, this is like level 3. This is so slow. You really don't need to be doing this because this is already a very accommodating board. This is taking Howard out of Tetris contention to take this triple. If he just wants to get his stack done a little bit, he could just place the L piece horizontally and just do a little line skim. See, using his advice from the last tip, he placed it horizontally instead of vertically. 3, with a few misplacements, gaps will sometimes form in awkward shapes that seem inaccessible and impossible to fill. With some quick maneuvering though, you may be able to work into the most out of the way spaces. It looks bad, but prepare to press B. Perfect fit. Okay, so he's explaining the concept of like T-spins. This actually is good advice to put in a magazine because even though T-spins are like such common knowledge now in Tetris, they sometimes weren't back in the day. That's another thing that was brought up in the Ecstasy of Order documentary that not everybody knew.
Rotate it and it just went right in there.
Dude, have never done a T-spin.
You've never seen that?
Not even accidentally.
Now the crazy thing is, this isn't the only way you have to do a T-spin. Joseph Saley, the current Tetris World Champion, has this example on his Twitter page of doing a boiler spin, which is basically rotating the T-piece while you flip it twice to basically pull off this like almost impossible move instantaneously in the frames. And then of course, it's not just T-spins. There are so many different crazy spins that you can do with all the other pieces that people are coming up with all the time. 4, when rotated, the bulk of some tetrads will shift to the right of the screen. This is most obvious with the tetrad that is 4 blocks long. When you're working at high speeds, this slight shift is important to keep in mind. If you are shooting for a Tetris in the really big points, build the block so that there is a 1 block wide gap on the right edge of the playing field. When the one piece that you completed Tetris with materializes, you should be able to shift it in position in time for it to score. Okay, perfect. So Howard is breaking down the right well. Okay, so that is some expert advice from Howard. I don't know why they didn't just put this at the beginning of the article. Maybe they just wanted to save it for Howard's tips section. 5, when a piece is in place, you will still have a very short amount of time to shift it into 1 more space. This will allow you to slip pieces into 1 block gaps that are covered on 3 sides. Okay, so what Howard's getting at here is that you have just a tiny bit of time to move the piece. It doesn't instantly lock onto the stack. You're able to like snug pieces in there like a tuck. Again, that is solid advice if you didn't know that, and especially on level 0. That's the one thing about the lower levels, is that you can actually pull off ridiculous tucks. The bottom line, the best way to become an ace at the game and challenge for the Tetris title is to practice. Develop your own strategies as you play and make sure that you're playing at a level that suits your abilities. There's not a lot of time to think at the higher levels, so it's best to experiment with tips at the lower levels and leave it to intuition during the expert rounds. Good luck. Okay, that actually is a really nice closer. A lot of this stuff is happening so fast that at the higher levels, you just have to have it like in your mental memory to instantly know what to do. Overall, I would have to say Howard's tips actually not too bad. There's some ones that are a little funky, I think because back in the day at the very beginning, it probably wasn't even expected that you would be going for nothing but Tetrises. It would be kind of like, okay, mostly it's gonna be singles and doubles. Maybe we'll get a triple or Tetris here and there to, I guess, you know, score some big ones. But yeah, I mean, the field is definitely evolved. It's definitely all Tetrises or nothing now, because now you want to see like some advanced moves from nowadays. The line tuck is starting to become more prominent, where you kind of set up a situation on the right side where you can tuck in a line piece. That way you don't have to skim potentially a single line. And then beyond that, for tapping even faster and getting to play on the level 29 speeds, Joseph Saley, again the current Tetris World Champion, has been developing a quick tap hyper tap, which is basically instead of just mashing with one hand, he's mashing now with 2 hands, where he's tapping and then punches in another tap from his other hand in the middle of that, so he gets even more speed. So honestly, it's kind of cool to be able to compare what things were like in the beginning to what they are like now. Back when this game was in its infancy, you know, I think this article gives some people some good stuff to start on. It's funny to look back now that there's been, you know, decades of people figuring out all the optimal strategies, but you know, for what they did at the time, I think there's value to it. So thanks for watching. If you want to see like Jonas Neubauer, like all his courses, I'll have a link to that in the description and also on the end screen. And I'll see you guys in the next video.